G'day, you mob. How's it going? Welcome to this episode of Aussie English. Today I have a special interview episode that I did with Chris Delapp from Instant English. You may also find him under Instant English UK. So he's originally from Great Britain. He has taught English for quite a number of years. He's been in places like Japan teaching, and then I think more recently he's moved to Spain and is living his best life there. I've been chatting to him a little bit on social media and getting to know him, and thought it would be really cool to do a podcast interview with him where we would just see where the conversation went. And it ended up going for about an hour and a half, maybe a little longer. So I've cut this into 2 episodes, and you'll kind of hear the first time we ever actually talk to each other in person and us kind of getting to know one another. So hopefully you really enjoy this interview, guys. We cover so many topics, like talking about the weather. Chris talks about his phobias of flying on planes and snakes. He talks about life in Japan, working there, and then what it's like living in Spain. We cover things like cash, using cash today versus using card, and how cash is almost becoming obsolete. We obviously talk about Britain versus Australia and British English versus Australian English. We talk about ancestry and using DNA tests to work out where your ancestors came from. And we also dive into things like Australian history, the convicts and the First Fleet, and how that ties in with British history too. So I think it's a really great conversation, guys. We're just being our authentic selves, hanging out, getting to know one another, and shooting the breeze. So I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for both episodes. If you're listening to part 2 now, listen to part 1. And if you're listening to part 1, stay tuned for part 2. Without any further ado, slap the bird and let's get into it. Do you still use much cash, or do you find yourself using a card all the time?
Now that I live in Spain, I just use card all the time, yeah. And I've just got into the whole phone thing. Like, I couldn't believe my wife kept doing it, and I was like, no, that's just stupid. I'm paying with my phone. But now she set it up on my phone, and I can't stop doing it. It's so nice. I just do taps of things with my phone. God, I'm getting old. But yeah, I get excited paying with my phone now. So yeah, I haven't seen cash for a while, which is really dangerous, right? Not dangerous in that way, but you don't even know what you're spending, and it doesn't really have the same significance. Like, if you're down the pub and you're like, okay, I'll get this round, and then you're like, no, I'll get the next round. But if you have the physical money in front of you, you can see it disappearing. Then it hits you more, doesn't it? So I don't know, it's quite bad. How's it in Australia? Is it more cash-based society, or?
No, I think we're moving away from it, just like everyone else. Like, I was having a conversation today with a woman while I was buying some booze for my wife. She wanted some wine, so I went out and got some, but I paid for it in cash because I'd bought something off Facebook Marketplace and I had some cash left over. And so it's just been sitting in my wallet because I do a lot more online shopping, so obviously I don't pay with cash there. And anytime I go into the supermarket or to stores, it's just so much easier to just go bang with the card. And after COVID, there are places that don't take cash anymore. Like, there's a coffee store or sort of franchise of coffee stores that you can kind of do drive-through called Bean Squeeze in Australia. And every time you go to them now, they have a sign out the front that just says no cash accepted. So it probably also makes their life easy, and they don't have to store any of the money on the premises. They don't have to transport it to the bank or anything like that. It's all online, and people move through the queue faster. Yeah. So I was just remarking to this girl, I was like, it's so weird paying for something in cash. I just realized that I've just never do this anymore. And I realized that if I didn't today, I'm like, well, this is just going to sit in my wallet. Like, I'm not going to use it. So I should probably, purchase something with the cash that I've got in my wallet, or it'll just probably end up a kid's toy or something in the house.
I mean, I think it makes so much sense, doesn't it? It's so much easier just to tap and go, let's say. And like, you don't need to cash up. If you're in a restaurant or whatever, you don't need to, evaluate, or you don't need to process the amount of money you've made that day or anything like that, right? So it's quite good, really.
Yeah, exactly. Was that
I remember when I lived in Japan.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, I remember when I lived in Japan. I think it's still the same, but it was from 2014 to 2017, so it's not that long ago. But they don't do card. Like, they rarely you can't really pay with card.
Really?
You have to. Well, they take credit card, but they don't have debit cards.
Ah.
So I only had like a cash machine card. I felt like I was 14 again. So you could only pay with cash in the majority of places, like apart from maybe hotels or something. But everywhere I went, it was always cash, cash. And if you wanted to pay for something on the internet, you had to do this thing where you buy it online, and then you had to go to like a 7-Eleven or a Family Mart, and then you went to the machine and you put the money in the machine, and then you got like a receipt, and then you put that number in online, and then it would clear the payment, and the product would be sent to you, whatever it was from Amazon or whatever.
That's really interesting, because
so
I would have thought
it's
I would have thought Japan would be so much more organized, right? They're one of those countries that are so technologically advanced. You'd imagine they'd be the first to have all this stuff sort of sorted out and as efficient as possible.
they are really advanced in some ways. Like, it's crazy. You know, the city of Tokyo with like 33 million people is so organized. But then on the other hand, like there's like the cash side of things is really dated. But also, like, they don't really have Wi-Fi anyway. If you go to like a coffee shop and you're like, do you have Wi-Fi? I would say 50-50. You've got 50-50 chance that they say no or yes.
Really?
So it's quite odd that they don't really, there's loads of things that they're kind of still like. Oh, and the other thing as well, when I worked in my first school, they would send my rota for the day via fax. So, or at the end of every day, they would send me the piece of paper via fax for my next day's classes. So it was really odd. Like, they still hugging the fax machine.
That's full 80s.
I don't know why they couldn't email me. It's so. But and then on the other hand, they had cars that drive themselves. So it's very odd.
I guess as someone who's a big outsider with Japan, you might know better than me as someone who's been there and worked there. But I feel like the Japanese hold on to their traditions quite strongly at times, and are probably not keen to change the way that they do things if it's a certain way and it works. So I don't know if that, like in a business or something, if they're using the fax and it's just a common cultural practice, they're probably not keen to sort of change the way that things are done because they are kind of culturally conservative that way. But I don't know.
Yeah, like one thing, for example, which would highlight that sort of traditional value would be that they have this stamp. So like every person has their own stamp, which is supposed to be very secure, because if you get a stamp from a particular person, how would anyone else have that stamp?
Because you gave it to them.
You can just go to a shop and get one made. yeah. It's like there was so many things I had to do in the beginning where like they were like, okay, but you need to get the stamp and you need to have your own stamp. And I was like, I'm not going to get a stamp. I'm not going to, it's not. I found it a bit silly, so I was like, I'm not going to get a stamp. And then once you kind of pleaded for a bit, they were like, okay, well, maybe not a stamp, just your signature will be fine. I was like, thank you. But so you had a lot of places I had to go to. I had to get a stamp and then the signature from the director or from the local politician or the admin or whatever it could be. So I think what happened was that they also, with the technology side, they had like their boom in the 90s or maybe the 80s, and they're very proud of that boom, and so they still hold on to those forms of technology, whether it's fax or cassette players or VHS, and then I don't know, for me nowadays when I look at Asia, I think South Korea is sort of way ahead of them, and they are preferring to they prefer to hold on to those old traditions or those old forms of technology because they're still proud of it. But yeah, I'm not really sure why they do it, but yeah, they are proud people.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? The rise of South Korea really cool. And how much they've just taken off with technology.
Yeah, and sort of entertainment as well. It's mad how, like when I've lived in other countries as well, like even in Peru, for example, people like the kids that I teach in Peru, they were culturally a million miles away from South Korea, and some of them would be like die-hard fans. Like they would be so into it, like BTS or whoever the other bands are, or Korean dramas.
The K-pop and the Korean dramas, yeah.
Nearly be shedding a tear.
Oh man, we've got.
It's so odd, like in the Andes Mountains.
We've got a friend that my wife's best friend from Brazil, and she lets us use her Netflix account. Don't tell anyone. So sometimes we jump on there, And I'm just like, has she geolocated this to Korea? Like, what am I looking at? And everything is South Korean TV shows. And my wife's like, oh no, she's just into that stuff. You know, she just loves that style TV show, the way that they do things. And I remember just being like, I didn't even know that that was a thing, right? Like, I can't imagine, I don't know, I can't imagine going to Britain and you guys just being like, I just watch Australian TV, or I just watch Ecuadorian, you know, pop shows, or you know, like it would just be such a random thing for you to just be sort of like, no, I'm just into this one country's one type of TV show and I'm just obsessed. Especially when it's so distant. Yeah, like a Brazilian being obsessed with K-pop and Korean TV shows. Again, there's nothing wrong with this at all, but it's just it's sort of like, how did you find this? How did you stumble upon it? Did you watch Squid Games? And that was the Squid Game and you got into it through that, or what?
Yeah. Yeah, I sometimes I'd almost get offended because I'd be like telling them about England, or, you know, I'd be like, oh, I'm from Oxford, you know, introduce myself at the beginning of the class, like, I'm from Oxford, and, you know, they were just blank faces. And then later on they'd tell me about some obscure area in South Korea, and I was like, how dare you not know Oxford, but you know the surname of the lead singer of BTS, you know, like how, you know, it's just ridiculous. But
I kept getting those comments. I have a video on YouTube that's gotten, I don't know, over 1 million views, and it's about Australian accents. And I remember that going up, and every second comment was, I'm here because of Felix or something. And it turned out the person that they were referring to was in a Korean pop band and was Korean Australian, and so spoke Australian English flawlessly, right? Like he'd grown up here, I think, but also grown up in Korea, and so he'd moved back later and become this huge K-pop star, but he would speak English with a full-on Aussie accent. And so all these people were suddenly really interested in Australian English because this Korean star...
Good for you.
Oh, it was just random though. I remember doing this and getting so many people being like, can you react to some K-pop with Felix? And can you watch these videos? And I'm like, this is so left of field. Like, I feel like it has nothing to do with anything that I'm doing. But they keep coming in all the time. Even now, they'll be like, I'm here because of Felix. I'm here because of Felix. I'm like, all right.
Well, as long as you're getting paid, I would milk that dry. Keep it coming.
That's it. Felix wants you to watch all the ads on my YouTube channel, please, guys. So was that the last question for the Aussie questions, or was there one left at the end there?
Oh no, I did have there was one left, sorry, you're right. Why do Australians always end their sentences on a soprano?
So are they talking about upspeak, you think there?
I think so.
This is such a cliche. Like, so you'll get, it's not all Australians. There are definitely some, and I don't do it, at least as far as I know. You know, when I finish a sentence, it'll go down like that. You know, I don't typically do the whole, so I'm going to go to the shops, and then maybe later I might do this, and so I might see my dog as well. And, you know, there are definitely Australians who do that, and it is the fucking bane of our existence. Like, the average Australian hates it. I think, like anyone who speaks English anywhere, I think hates when... It's probably the same in all languages. If you do something that is incredibly repetitive all the time in your way of speaking, whether it's use of words or phrases or the intonation that you use, it grinds on people because they're hearing it at such a high frequency. So if I was always saying, there was a good example. I watched a video the other day, and this guy was using, he was saying regardless all the time when he was moving on topic. So instead of saying like anyway, he kept saying regardless. And I was just like, he's using it in the wrong context. Like you don't use regardless, right, to sort of change topics and move on. Unless you're saying like everything I just said was, you know, it isn't important.
That's probably what he was trying to say.
He said it like 20 times in a 20-minute interview, and it was just like grinding on me because like he just kept doing it. So he'd be like, oh, so I had this problem and I did this, but regardless, and then we did this and this and this, but regardless. And it was coming up so frequently that I was just like, Jesus Christ, man, learn a few other synonyms and just throw them in there, you know, like anyway, but besides that, you know, switch it up. So I think it's the same thing with upspeak or uptalk in Australia. there are people who do it. There's an Asian comedian that I have followed for a while. I've forgotten his name. I think his first name's Chris as well. It might be. I'll have to look it up. But he does it as part of his act, and it's the most annoying thing, but he's hilarious, so it kind of works in. So he'd be like, so how are you guys? Oh, you're going well? You know? So just does that all the time, and you just it's just a joke because you see him interviewed and he never does it, and you're just like, okay. But it's sort of, I'm going off on a tangent, but I recently got into houseplants and rare houseplants, and I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and it's really interesting because it seems like, as a straight white man, this is not my hobby. Like, it feels like something that I am a foreigner in this land. Like, when I get on YouTube,
you should be mowing the lawn, you know?
Yeah.
Drinking beer.
That's every single lawn mowing enthusiast on YouTube will be a fat middle-aged white bloke from Australia. No, but they're all very young women, usually very attractive and trendy. Like, they're into interior design, their fashion's all sorted out, they've got, you know, beautiful makeup on, or they'll be very, very flamboyantly gay men. And often mixed race gay men. Like, I don't know, there's just it's a really, really interesting dynamic. And I think when getting into this, I realized how they all speak the same way. And they all use uptalk. So I followed there's two Canadians that I follow. One's a gay man of Asian origin in, I think, Vancouver. And there's a young white woman from Vancouver Island. Actually, one's from Toronto, one's from Vancouver. And they both use uptalk all the time. And I think he does it because he speaks in a very feminine way. So he'll do that whole, like, oh my gosh, and then I did this, and like, wow, you know, like very, very flamboyantly, you know, homosexual kind of way of speaking, and it's sort of very feminine. And again, I'm not trying to put anyone down, it's just very interesting, but I've noticed all these people in this niche seem to be watching each other's videos, and I don't know if they already did it before it, but they all use uptalk. And it's just the most weird thing. And that was when I was like, oh, shit, it's not just Australians. This is Canadians. There's some Americans that do it. There's Brits that I've noticed doing it. People in London, you know, and there's an American woman living in London who has like this half accent, and she does it. And I'm like, it's just really interesting that it's obviously this. I don't know if it's something that is everywhere anyway, but also these guys watch each other's videos and are sort of part of a very small niche and culture group, and they're copying one another, whether consciously or subconsciously. So, yeah, I don't think the uptalk thing is just Australian, but we do it. And weirdly enough, you'd have to tell me if you've noticed this as well, but I notice women doing this more than men. So, and if men do it, often it's gay men who are taking on a more feminine way of speaking, and they kind of emphasize it to, you know, times 10. And so we'll do it incessantly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's that, but I noticed, well, I think women tend to elongate certain verbs, you know, like, you know, I went to the shop, you know, there'll be some sort of vowels that they elongate more than others, but I'm not sure at the end of the sentence. I have to keep an eye out for that. But one thing that comes up on mine quite a lot would be the drop of the T's. I can't seem to get away with that on the internet. Like, whenever I'm just talking, making a video, someone, I swear to God, every single video, there will be someone who will comment, bottle of water, like, but they'll write it, you know, in a very sort of meme way.
Yeah.
And I just can't get away from it. I don't know. Maybe I should make a video just imitating an American accent or something, because it's just something like his little tag that someone has to put on there. I don't know why.
You just need to learn to speak English properly, mate.
It's okay. Yeah. Tough. It's not that hard. I can do it.
Well, you can do it at the start of syllables. It's just the ones at the end, right? At the ends of syllables or between them. So instead of using the T flap or whatever, you do the glottal stop, that water. But it's like, you should just point to Ricky Gervais. He doesn't give a fuck. He's worth, you know, more than the Pope. 150 million or something, and he uses the glottal stop all the time, you know. He's just got that really strong, is it Cockney or is it, what's the accent? It's like a London Cockney kind of accent that uses that typical thing you said, the bottle of water.
Yeah, well, he definitely drops he definitely does the glottal stop, or makes the glottal stop. I think it's hard to say because now he sort of lives outside London, and but I've only ever seen him in his like mansion lifestyle. So he lives like in Hertfordshire, I think, outside London, which is kind of posh sort of suburb of London, or outside the outskirts of London. So but yeah, so he kind of strikes me as like, I don't know, he comes across as like posh. So I don't know if he's that Cockney, but that might just because he's created that image of being quite wealthy now. But
I love how
yeah,
he always works that into
himself.
his comedy, where he'll just be like, I think in one of his most recent ones, he was making a joke about how he was actually a minority. He was like, I'm a fat, middle-aged, balding dude who's worth millions. And he was like, most people aren't that, you know, like, you know, I'm a minority. He's like, I need your sympathy, you know, you should be giving me respect.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I think he does that in every stand-up show, especially the ones that he's recorded. It will just be like something like, well, but you know, I'm filthy rich, or something like that. So it's really, he's hilarious.
I think it's one of those things you can't get away from it, right?
Steve as well.
Like, it's so obvious that you have to almost address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's trying to make fun of. He makes fun of like many rich people as well, like many celebrities and that kind of thing. So I suppose he's trying to sort of make fun of himself before anyone can get to him, which is obviously hilarious as well.
You know, he doesn't drive.
Yeah, it's really good. I love The Office as well. Does he not?
He doesn't have a driver's license. He's never driven. He was on that podcast that he does with Sam Harris, and he's like, I just never learnt to drive. And Sam's like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean you don't drive? You're like 60. You've never driven? And he's like, I just walked everywhere.
Jesus, I had no idea. Yeah, maybe he lived in London then. That kind of would make sense a bit.
I know, that blew my mind.
Otherwise, that doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, this was meant to be my interview, mate. You've been interviewing me for the last hour.
There's a lot of stuff I wanted to get. Well, because I was doing a bit of research about like what, you know, some Australian things and some words and that, and then I found these questions and I thought, I need to get them. So I had some others like, what is the most Australian word out there? Like I was thinking, what is like the most stereotypical word? Would it just be like for you? Because you know, everyone, there are stereotypes from other countries like "good day, mate" and stuff like that. But there must be other ones that are more realistic, but are used heavily.
So in like a negative way, or in a way that people who aren't Australian would know them?
Like, I think, yeah, well, I think, for example, whenever I say, like, I'm from England, people would often say, like, with the bottle of water thing, or what else would they say? Yeah, or mate, perhaps they would say mate. But yeah. I think probably, well, mate is used a lot. But I would say "all right" is probably the most British word out there. Just all right, yeah, I'm all right. How are you? Yeah, I'm all right.
That's such a peculiar.
Saying, all right.
That's such a peculiar greeting for us, and I think Americans too, because you guys do that. You're right, or all right. And if someone walked up to me and just said "all right," I'd be like, "What's all right? Like, what do you mean?" Like, and if they said to you, if they walked up to me and said,
"You did something wrong, right?"
Yeah, if they said, "Are you all right?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine." You know, or that it would be like they were expressing concern, like, you know, as if I'd been hit by a car or something, and they've walked over, like, "Oh my God, are you all right?" Whereas, yeah, you guys use it as just like a "how's it going" kind of greeting, right?
So I think, it's very. We like to be, I think, very neutral or very sort of centered. So we would always say, like, "You're right, all right, yeah, I'm all right, yeah, me too, I'm doing pretty good." Or like things are always just nice or lovely, like, "Oh, it's a nice day. Oh, what do you think of this top? Yeah, it's nice." You know, nothing's ever extreme, or it's always quite centered. So
we have I
think that's why we use that one quite a lot.
We have a cliche that would be everything's a negative, like not negative as in like a bad thing, but it's always played down. So Carl Barron, there's an Australian comedian. He's a bald guy from Queensland, and he's hilarious. But he talks about this, and he's like, Australians are so understated, and it will be that, "How are you? Not bad." Or "What are you up to this weekend?" Nothing much. You know, and he does this whole skit where he's like, "So I was on a plane the other day, and there was a guy next to me, and the bloody engine caught on fire, and the guy looks out the window, turns around, and he's just like, "Oh, that doesn't look good." Like, so the whole thing is just how Australians, especially I think men, will often just play things down, and it's just like you never sort of make a big deal about things and say, how are you? I'm amazing, over the moon, everything's great, blah, blah, blah. You'd just be like, yeah, not bad. Even if, your dog's died or something and you're upset, you'd be like, oh, yeah, not bad. Not too bad.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Yeah, I think I had worse days. I think that's probably why British people, well, from my point of view, we feel more connected to Australia than to the US. Because if you ask someone from the US, like, how are you doing? Or if you give someone a compliment in the US, like, oh, your videos are amazing, they'll be like, oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Whereas in the UK, it would be more like, yeah, but I don't edit them myself. Someone helps me. It'd be like everything will be kind of, we find it very hard to take a compliment. It would be more like, oh, well, thank you very much. But, I got a bit lucky, I suppose.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Maybe not to the extreme of Australia, but similar.
It's the same thing here with that tall poppy syndrome thing that I talked to you about. Like, if you were to be like, yeah, I know, I'm fucking awesome. People would be like, this guy is a wanker.
Yeah.
Like that is a massive red flag right there, my mate.
But yeah, that was all my questions, I think. But yeah, it was interesting to dive into that because it's not something I think about too often, really. To be honest.
How do you guys view Australians? Like, what do you and how would you think the average Brit who's never been to Australia would view Australians?
The people, I think we would normally think of them as a bit freer, a bit wilder in terms of not being timid or shy to do anything or to speak to anyone, but having a bit of a little bit of us in them, like a little bit of humility and that kind of thing. But at the same time, maybe jumping off of things or jumping out of planes or doing things which we would want to do, but we're a bit like, maybe it's a bit dangerous, maybe not. So I think we see you as like crazy cousins, like you're a bit freer to do what you want, I would say, in general.
Yeah, it's always interesting asking people that sort of question as an outsider. What do you think of Australia or of Australians? How would you guys view the country, like geographically, the location? Does it seem like something that's like ages away, dangerous, like too hot? What's sort of the stereotypical belief about the place?
Yeah, very far away. I think most people would say like it's impossible to get to or very hard to reach. I personally would see it as like massive. Like I don't think it's normally put into perspective of like how big it is, but because it's just it's on the map, it's kind of like down at the bottom. Like from a English perspective, it's down at the bottom and in the corner, and it's normally quite small, well, fairly small, but it's huge, isn't it? It's like, yeah, I don't know how many times it could fit into Europe, but I feel like it could be 6 times over or something ridiculous.
I think it's
for me it's just
7
massive, isn't it? And I
7 million square kilometers, so it's similar size to Canada and America, and China. I think those three are bigger than Australia, but it's that kind of same sort of width.
The first time that I really was taken back by the size of it was when somebody mentioned, or when they were doing the workaway on one of the farms, that the farmer had helicopters to do the farming. And I was like, that is nuts. Like,
yeah.
You need a helicopter to get around.
That would be because they have free-ranging livestock, usually bulls and cows, that we have some farms in Australia that are the size of small European countries. Like if I type in here, largest farm Australia into Google, it's Anna Creek, and it's 5.8 million acres. So it's insane. It's huge. What's it the size of? So like if I type in Anna Creek is the size of, and then see what comes up.
Estonia, I reckon. No.
Albania. It's 1.2 times bigger than Albania, I think. Austria is only 3.5 times bigger than Anna Creek Station. So there you go. It's a quarter the size of, or a bit more than a quarter the size of Austria. But because they're so big, they just kind of let their livestock free range, and they'll have thousands upon thousands of them. And so the only way to get them to come back is usually that they use a helicopter to go find them all, to then round them up. And then on multiple days, the helicopter has to repeat this process and get them going a certain direction to bring them back to the homestead or wherever they need to round them up to bring them back into. So, yeah. So it's bigger than Israel.
Yeah, I bet steak must be really expensive then.
Yeah, well, definitely recently because of fuel prices. But yeah, it is huge. I think we have that cliche of is it 100 years in Australia is a long time and 100 kilometers in Great Britain is a long way. So there are times like I'll drive sometimes. I remember driving to Canberra in a single day, and it would be 7.5 hours, and I would just do it in 2 stops. Like you would stop once for a piss or a poo or something and something to eat, and you would just smash out the rest of it. And I'd be like, yeah, that's no big deal.
The average English person would take about a month to do that.
Really? Yeah, and it's just expectations, right? And so I've driven to Bundaberg, which is halfway between Cairns and Brisbane in Queensland. So it's about 2 hours north of north of Brisbane by driving. Maybe a bit further than that, actually. Maybe it's actually quite a bit more. But anyway, it's about, I think, 1,500 kilometers north of where I live. And I've driven there in 2 days. So you just, you just smash it out. I'll be in a car with 3 friends and you just take turns driving the entire time. And then you just have that expectation of sometimes if you want to go to a certain place, it is only 2 days away, but you just have to drive the entire time to get there. And so I think for perspective, Perth would be 3 to 4 days non-stop, I think, from where I live. So that's how far away Perth is. I think it would be like 2,500, 3,000 kilometers from where I am.
Most people just drive around then. In terms of like if you're let's say younger, or if you want to save a bit of cash, or is it just cheaper to fly? You do it more for the experience.
I think it's definitely cheaper to fly. Like it would only be a few $100s to fly to Brisbane or to Cairns or whatever from Melbourne, and you'd be there within 3 or 4 hours if you were flying up to Cairns. You might have to have a changeover in Brisbane, but if you're driving, I think Cairns would be. Let's see if I type in Melbourne to Cairns drive. What does it give me on Google here? 31 hours, so it's 2,817.8 kilometers from Melbourne, where I live. So it'd be an extra hour and a half on top of that to get to where I am outside of Melbourne. But so that would, that's only a day and a half if you just don't stop. So almost 3,000 kilometers. In no time. Yeah, but I mean, there would be people who drive that in 2 days, maybe 3 days. If they were really in a rush, they would do 2 days. Or maybe, truckies would probably smash that out in a few stops, maybe have one sleep and then just punish it. So I think it's just expectation. So that's the same thing. It's funny. I wonder if going to like Great Britain, if I went on a holiday there, I'd be in London and you'd just be like, let's just get in the car and drive to Scotland. Like, fuck it. It's just, what's that, like halfway to Canberra? That's not a problem. We'll just smash it out. And you guys would be like, you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mad. That would be just, for me, it's madness. But, I suppose now that I've been to other countries, but especially before I went to other countries, I was like, driving for 2 hours is like, oh, that's a long one. Most people, it's nothing. That's
crazy because I could do that with no stops, right? Like you just get so habituated to it, I guess. And it'd be interesting for people who end up living in Europe for a long period of time from Australia and then they come back, if you would have that kind of expectation smashed out of you and you'd be like, Jesus, everything is so far away. Like, yeah, you sort of like have taken that for granted all your life and then you lose it and you come back and you're like, screw this for a joke. But the thing I think we would view as grass being greener on the other side is you guys just being so close to so many other languages and cultures and countries and having such a deep history. Like, although we have like the indigenous history here going back 60,000 years, which is insane, you don't really have like structures that are thousands or even really hundreds of years old that are indigenous that you can kind of see, unless they're caves with art and, maybe carved wooden trees and stuff like that. But you guys can like go to Rome or even throughout parts of London, I imagine, and there are things that are from, before 1000 AD or whatever, like at least 1,000 years old. There'd be stuff I'd imagine you can walk around and see. And it's just like, I can't imagine being in, say, going to Great Britain and thinking, because when I did my DNA test, I'm effectively 100% Scottish English. I can't imagine thinking, shit, my ancestors have been here for thousands of years on this land, So that's one thing that most Australians, every single Australian who isn't Indigenous, has like max 200 years worth of history here. And you guys walking around on a daily basis in Europe, pretty much if you're from any of those countries, like originally as the sort of endemic population, you've got this insanely long history and the archaeology there, and these deep roots that I sort of see, and I'm like, wow, that must feel insane.
Yeah, I think where I live now in the south of Spain, in Malaga, there's too much old shit. Like they literally have too much now, because they're trying to build a subway, or they're trying to build like a metro, and they just can't. They go like 5 meters, and then they hit like a Roman ruin, or like the ruins from when the Muslims or the Islamic
is that like the 900s, right,
or whatever it was. So I'm not sure when it was exactly, but yeah, it was all the way. The whole of Spain basically was invaded by sort of North Africa. I'm not sure what they call it Musulmanos in Spanish. I'm not sure what it'd be, just like Muslims.
Yeah, it's Muslim. That's the same in Portuguese. Musulmanos.
Yes. Is it? So they just well, that's their excuse anyway. There probably is a lot of corruption going on as well, but their excuse is that they keep bumping into an old wall, and then they have to go around it, and go under it, or that kind of thing. So
and call in the archaeologists every single time.
Yeah. Well, did you do the DNA test then? Where you get that online and you spit on a stick and that kind of thing?
I didn't. My parents both did it, and I just averaged the results out. But yeah, and my wife's Brazilian, and she did it, and she had the most insane one that came back.
What was it? What was hers?
Oh man,
I would love to do it.
I think she had like 20 different countries. Like first and foremost was, I think it was Portugal was like 60%, which isn't a surprise, right? And then I think it was like Spain, Italy, France. I think there was like Ireland. But the crazy stuff, she had like 13% indigenous South American, and then I think about 13% African. So she had 5 different West African countries that effectively the slave trade. They'd all been brought over to Brazil from West Africa and, the Caribbean and the United States, and probably Britain and Europe as well from that same area. And so it was funny because she looks quote unquote white, right? Like you would look at her, and if you didn't know she was Brazilian, you would just think, oh, she's, European. But she has like all this indigenous DNA, African DNA in there as well. And I think the average Brazilian is probably like that, because Brazil's over 500 years old. And they had slavery. I think they had slavery really early, and they were one of the last to get rid of it. And as a result, the population's really mixed. So they have this like lots of indigenous DNA in most people, lots of European DNA in most people, and lots of African DNA in most people as a result of that history. And so it is this crazy thing where I think like, fuck, I'm just like boring Scottish English with a little bit of like East Germanic, like about as wide as it gets. And my wife, has like 3 different continents at least, and so, yeah, it's just really, it's really interesting.
It's
and then,
a shame.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. So I got really jealous when she did her DNA thing and it came back with just all these different, I'm like, man, you got to do your family tree. Like imagine you find indigenous people from South America, you'll find Africa, these like at least 5 different African countries with 5 different histories. You'll have families and everything that have come from all these different areas. You might be able to find out what tribes, you originally descended from and everything. And I just can't imagine having that kind of diversity in my background and being able to follow that up.
Yeah, that's it. It's really, I would love to do it myself. And, also my wife's from Peru, so it'd be quite interesting to see if where her heritage goes as well, which I imagine probably some Spanish, but, could be other countries in South America as well. But, I hold hope that maybe I'm a bit, I think not exactly I burn quite easily, but I think I am a little bit. I'm not the average Brit. I feel like I've got something in me, I don't know whether
that's the litmus test, is it?
Spain or
it's just whether or not you sunburn easy. You're just sort of like, yeah, I'm Brit.
Yeah, exactly. If you turn like a lobster, then you're just you're very, very British. If you're not, you've got a hint of brown in you. Then I hope that there's a bit of Latino in me, maybe somewhere. Stemming back thousands of years, maybe.
Well,
not.
It's interesting. I went to school with some guys who look like if you were to just put them, in front of you and say, what do you think their race is? You'd probably say mixed. That one parent's Caucasian and the other person is African, because the person in front of you is very, very dark hair, but not really, really dark, like say someone from, an African country. So, but his history is, I think he's Italian. And I remember thinking that, and he was like, "Oh, mate, my great grandparents were slaves. Like they were actually Africans that had been brought over into Italy." And I remember thinking, like, I'd never heard about black people in Italy. That seems like such a foreign thing, like a foreign idea. Like what? But yeah, and so he had this really cool family history as well as a result.
Yeah, I have to get on it.
I think it only takes a few weeks, mate. You just sign up online and they send you the tube. It's sort of like it's literally like a rat test, right? One of the COVID antibody tests where you just spit in a tube, shake it up, and then send it back to them, and they send you the results.
As long as it's not a stick thing, God, can't. Yeah, nothing's going up my nose anymore.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just spit in a tube now.
A little. Oh, okay. That'd be cool. Yeah, it could make a good, cool video. Well, unless it comes back like you're 100% English. Okay, great.
You have to watch. There's a few of those reaction videos online for people doing those tests, and there was a really funny one where there was an African American woman who she was clearly mixed descent. I think like kind of light brown, like a Rihanna kind of complexion.
Yeah.
But she was totally expecting to have her. I think the business that she went through traced back which tribe your maternal lineage came from. So it looked at the mitochondrial DNA that you had, which is only passed down through the women in your family. And so she was really expecting to get some kind of like crazy information about which African country and which tribe she'd come from. And when she got the results back, it turned out she was British. And it turns out,
the worst of the worst.
I think it turned out that she had like one great grandparent that was a British woman, and by chance that mitochondrial genome from that British woman in her history has been passed down through her family, who everyone else is quote unquote African American or black, right? And she almost cries because she's so upset, and you're just like, it is what it is. Like,
that bad to be British. It's not that bad. There's some perks.
I just remember watching that and being like, how is she so upset that one of her ancestors was a woman from Great Britain and, married an African man, and then they, end up having, or a man of African descent, they end up having, a bunch of other descendants and everything, and she is who she is. I can't imagine finding out, say, that I had Chinese DNA and crying because I was so upset. Like I can't imagine finding out that I had Spanish ancestry and being like, I've got to sweep that under the rug. That can never see the light of day. The amount of shame that carries. Like,
I'm Australian.
I know, that's
I'm pure Australian.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly, one thing we did used to have in our history, my grandparents were of this generation. If you had convict ancestry, that was a blight on your family and your name. You would never, ever, ever mention or talk about the fact that you had ancestors who were convicts that were brought over to Australia effectively as slave labor prisoners to work here, and then later had children and everything. Whereas nowadays it's seen as a kind of honor. like you're one of the quote unquote original European Australians, you know, that you were because we have that tall poppy syndrome thing, you're one of the first downtrodden,
Right.
you know, people who was sentenced to 7 years hard labor in Australia for stealing a sock, you know, from some lord in London, and you know, your ancestor was 12 years old and sent out here for life. And that's now a pride thing, whereas back in my grandparents' time, it would be like, Jesus, don't ever tell anyone, you know, like Rose and Beverly down the street cannot know that my great-great-grandmother was a convict, because they'll never invite us over for the tea parties.
Yeah. No, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, wow, it's definitely strange how, you know, a lot of people got sent to Australia, but now England, well, people in England are looking at Australia like, oh, I wish I could live there, nice and sunny weather. I think we got it wrong, really. We should have emigrated there and then left all the convicts in England.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
It's such a fascinating history.
Crumbles.
It's such a fascinating history because you guys at the time were, I think you had like 260 different crimes that were given the death penalty, because you had a massive problem with theft in the 1700s. And I think at the time, property rights and everything was seen as incredibly important by the rich and upper class, because they were trying to protect their wealth and everything they had and really separate the classes. They didn't want anyone from the lower classes coming up either. So it was seen as like, these people aren't human, fuck these people at the bottom. And so all these people, when you look at the original like 1,000 convicts that came over in what would have been about 700, 800 in the first fleet, the first 11 ships that were brought out here, some of the charges are just the dumbest things, you know, like, because anyone who'd actually raped or murdered anyone was given the death penalty, effectively. They weren't sent out to Australia as, you know, because all those sentences were death penalty sentences that were then commuted to life. You know, 7 years hard labor in Australia, which was effectively like today sending someone to Mars. You know, if you were a convict sent to Australia, there was effectively no chance you'd ever be able to buy a ticket back home and be like, hey guys, I'm back after my 7 years. Course, it was like, yeah, you're fucked, mate. You're gone. You're done. You're out of here. But some of the things were like, stealing a spoon, or being a Catholic, or supporting, you know, the wrong political party, being Irish, you know, they were stealing potatoes, hunting rabbits on someone's warren. Like, there's so many of them were just the absolute stupidest crimes. But at the time, they carried a death penalty, and they were commuted, especially if they were children and women. So it is really sad. You see some of these kids that came out at like the age of 12 by themselves as, you know, criminals, and they were just sent here to live out the rest of their life for stealing a rabbit once to try and feed their family. And you're just like, good God.
Jesus. Yeah, I didn't know that. It makes, I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? Wow, that's mad.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I know. Sorry, a bit of a negative downer.
I better. Yeah, I was gonna say I better dash.
No, all good, dude. All good. I'll have to get you on again to talk about your journey, because we kind of just had a fun conversation, which is always good. I love having these sorts of things, and especially when it's so good to have these kinds of conversations when you first meet someone and it just works.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was lovely. It's nice little picking up in the morning. Now I feel fully awake. Apart from a bit about the rabbit stealers, but rabbit thieves. But yeah.
Well, before you go though, Chris, before you go, can you please tell people your name is Chris Delapp and you have Instant English UK on social media and YouTube and everything. Can you tell people where to find you on the social medias?
Yeah, sure. So on all platforms, my name is Instant English. Sometimes maybe Instant English UK if you can't find it straight away. And you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and Bilibili if you're Chinese, right? Also on Bilibili, which is really fun because a lot of it I can't read, but it's fun to be on there. I've got some help from a lady who does the translations for me, but yeah, also on Bilibili.
Wow.
And my name's Chris.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, Chris. It's been really good. I will get you on again, though, and we'll have to talk about your journey doing, you know, what you're doing, how you ended up in Spain, married to a Peruvian, and where you've traveled and everything. But, yeah, thank you for the conversation today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to have you back soon, mate.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me.
Alrighty, guys, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, mate. It was incredible to finally get to sort of meet you in the flesh, although I guess it was virtually in the flesh. Guys, remember you can check him out at Instant English on pretty much every single platform. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't checked out part 1, go back. That was last week. I hope you enjoy that part 2. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Catch ya.